All right, I think I got it figured out. All right. Can y'all hear me now? Can y'all hear me in the chat now? Test, test. Can y'all hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right, I think I got it figured out. Type yes if you can hear me. I think I can. Let me see. Can you hear me? Hello, can y'all hear me now? I'm actually on my Facebook page and I can hear me. So I don't know why y'all can't hear me. All right, all right. So, okay. All right. So y'all can, cool, cool, cool. Let me make sure. Hold on a second. Okay, Bob Sanders on YouTube says he can hear me, and let me make sure y'all can hear me on Facebook too. Facebook, if y'all can hear me on Facebook, say yes, I can hear you. So I know I'm good on YouTube. I think I'm good on Facebook too. All right. So what's up? What's up, social media family? This is Marlon, ADOS Chicago president, and we hadn't been on a live in a long time. You know, we used to do our ADOS one-on-one orientations and presentations every Sunday. And since the murder of George Floyd, we hadn't done them. You know, we'd been doing other things because of the climate of everything. So we had kind of stopped doing these and started doing other stuff. But we are starting them back. We're going to do them weekly. And I was actually supposed to start at 4. And I just completely forgot. And somebody called me and said, "Hey, dude, ain't you supposed to be doing, ain't we doing an orientation today?" So that's why I'm a little late. So uh, we're going to get started. Do us a favor. Well, thank you for joining us. First of all, do us a favor and share this. Share this live. Share the live on your Facebook pages. If you're on our YouTube, share it. If you can share it to Twitter, share it. And we appreciate you guys for sharing it. And we're going to get started here in just a sec. Okay. So this is the ADO Chicago presentation. ADOS 101 presentation. We talk to you about ADOS, who we are, and what we do. So again, share this live, share this presentation. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, so let me make sure this is coming up here. All right, I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see my PowerPoint presentation? Can you see my screen? I want to make sure my screen is being seen. If you can see my screen, give me a thumbs up or say yes or something like that in the chat. Okay, y'all can't see my screen. Okay, what in the world is going on? All right, let me see. Okay, let's try this. Okay, how about now? Can y'all see my screen now? Can y'all see my I'm sharing my screen. Let me know if y'all can see it. It should be sharing right now. No, oh my God, come on, baby. Okay, let me see what the problem is here. Uh, da, da. All right, let's try it now. Just a second. Okay, I should be good now. All right, how about now? Can y'all see my screen yet? It's getting on my nerve. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Why is this not sharing? All right, if y'all hanging there with me, trying to figure out why my screen isn't sharing. As soon as I figure out how to share this screen, we're gonna get it cracking. No, that's not it. Hang in there with us, guys. I promise you we're gonna figure this out. All right, hang in there, guys. We're gonna figure out why my screen isn't sharing because I don't know why, but it should be sharing right now. Still no screen, y'all. Y'all still can't see the screen. This is annoying. Oh, I think I Test, 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 test. Test, test. Can you hear me now? Test, test, test. Can you hear me now? Test, test. Can you hear me now? Test, test, test. Can you hear me now? All right. The sound is back. I don't know what the heck was up with that. Okay. All right. Can you still see my screen? Am I still good on the screen? Okay. All right. Okay. So that took us long enough. All right. So again, thank you guys for joining the ADO Chicago presentation. We're going to start over. So once again, good. I got a text says I'm loud and clear. Good, 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 good. All right. So yeah, they changed the platform. I had used it so long that I didn't know they changed it, and I'm just figuring out how to use it again. So thank you for hanging in there with us. And again, thank you for joining this presentation. And please share it. Share it on your Facebook page. Share it on if you're on YouTube. Share it on Twitter if you can. You can copy the link and text it to your friends. Text it out. Tell them to take a look at the presentation as well. And we're going to jump right in. So this is the ADOS Chicago presentation. And these are things we're going to cover. We're going to cover what is ADOS. So you may have heard excuse me, you may have heard the word ADOS or the phrase ADOS out and about, maybe on the news, likely a lot on social media. Maybe some of your friends and family have talked about ADOS. And so we're going to talk about what it is. You may have seen people with ADOS shirts on, or here in Chicago, you may have seen people with ADOS hats on. We have ADOS hats with upside down flags on them, American flags. And my veterans know what an upside down flag means. It means distress. It means you're in distress. But you may have seen that and wondered what it is. I've actually had people see me in ADOS clothing and ask whether the clothing line. They saw my ADOS shirt and my ADOS hat and my ADOS face mask. And guy pulled me over or stopped me and asked me, was that a clothing line? So you may have heard about that. So we're going to talk about what ADOS is. We're going to talk about where we are economically. And we're going to talk about how did it happen? How did we get to where we are economically? And then we'll talk about reparations, which is another hot topic you may have heard about lately in the news. And that is thanks to ADOS. We are responsible for that conversation. So we're going to talk about those few things. And before we get started, there are a few ground rules. We would generally say hold all questions until the end, but this isn't a lot. Well, it is a live presentation, but it's not in person. So you can actually ask questions right now as we're doing a presentation. We got our sister Cynthia McDonald in the chat. She can answer questions for you. I see Maxwell Little's in the chat, and he can answer questions for you. So don't have to hold the questions until the end. Ask the questions now if you need to. But here are some ground rules we will be abiding by during today's presentation. We don't allow curse words. And when I say curse words, I don't mean the typical 4-letter words that we're accustomed to. I'm talking about a specific set of curse words, a specific set of restricted terms that we as ADOS folk, we don't use. And we don't allow other people to use, particularly politicians. When we're talking to politicians, we demand that the politicians talk to us nice. We demand that they address us in a particular way. And these words that I'm about to explain are not that way. So here are the curse words we don't allow in our presentations. The first one is minority. That's a word we don't allow. You can't call us minorities. We want to be addressed as ADOS. Another word is diversity. You may hear the word diversity a lot, and it sounds good and nice and liberal, and loving and inclusive. But for us, that's a curse word. Black and brown. Now, ain't nothing wrong with black. If that's what you want to be classified as. It ain't nothing wrong with brown if that's what you want to be classified as. But we have a problem when people try to put it together. When they say the black and brown issue or the black and brown coalition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we restrict that. We reject that. We consider that a curse word. Another curse word is people of color. That's a big one. You hear that a lot. Well, people of color. And that's another curse word we restrict. We're going to talk about why shortly. And another one is women of color. I know some sisters ain't going to like me because of that one. You just going to have to not like me. Because that's a word we restrict. We don't, those folk, those men and the women, we don't do that. We don't do women of color, people of color, black and brown, diversity, and minority. And there's a particular reason why. And we're going to explain that here in a second. You may have heard the term before if you're somewhat of a political person who pays attention to social and political issues. You may have heard the phrase benign neglect. Benign neglect. That's really popular and attached to the Nixon administration. You may have heard it related to that administration. But benign neglect, let's look up what it is. It is an attitude or policy of ignoring an often delicate or undesirable situation that one is held to be responsible for dealing with. So in essence, benign neglect it's just really a nice way of ignoring a person. So let me put it in context. So with ADOS people, American Descendants of Slavery, which is what ADOS stands for, instead of America in the political class addressing us as who we are and addressing us in the context of our suffering, they will use terms like people of color. They will use terms like diversity, black and brown, minority. And what that does is that allows them to ignore our issues by lumping everybody else into those issues, which dilutes what is supposed to be specifically for us. And so in essence, what they end up doing is essentially is harming us or ignoring us without even calling us a bad name, without doing it directly. So they can say, I'll give you an example. Affirmative action. That's supposed to be for us. The president who created the administration who created it said this is for those whose ancestors were enslaved or in chains in this country. Yet they include white women and Hispanics and everybody else inside of affirmative action. And what it ends up doing is it ends up diluting what we're supposed to get. So they don't have to call us the N-word. They don't have to call us, look at us bad. They don't have to be mean to us. All they have to do is say, this is for minorities. This is for people of color. So that's one of the reasons that is primarily the reason we restrict those terms, because they are a way to neglect what's supposed to be for us. Another concept and reason why we reject those terms is a term called the Southern Strategy. And I'll let Lee Atwater, the Reagan political strategist, explain what the Southern Strategy is. Hopefully you can hear this. Let me know if y'all can hear this video. Okay, somebody says no video sound. All right, you may not have been able to hear that, but so essentially that was Lee Atwater, and Lee Atwater was a political strategist, and he talked about this what they call the Southern Strategy. And the Southern Strategy was, according to Lee Atwater, was a way to use abstract terms that would harm Black people without making it evident that you're harming or making it obvious that you're harming black people. So some of those terms that Lee Atwater talked about was terms like forced busing and states' rights, etc. And Lee Atwater said that, and this is almost verbatim, that we can't say nigger, nigger, nigger anymore because it's unpopular. It makes people cringe. But we can be more abstract in saying things like stuff like forced busing or um, things like that, and states' rights. And that would harm, he said that would harm black people. It would harm white people a little bit, but mostly it would complete its objective, and that's mostly harming black people. So that was the Southern strategy. So the Southern strategy and benign neglect were ways to use terms that would ignore black people without making it obvious that that's what they're doing. So those terms, minority, people of color, black and brown, diversity, women of color, somebody else said in the chat, underserved communities. And maybe we should put intersectionality on there too. But those terms are terms that we reject as those people. You got to talk to us and talk to us directly. So no curse words, no minority, no diversity, no black and brown, no people of color, no women of color, and no underserved communities. And we're gonna throw in intersection. For the most part, no, talk to us directly. Okay. So now that we got that out the way, what is ADOS? This is a snippet from Dr. William Darity, the Intergenerational Economist book, From Here to Equality. That book just came out this year, and it's the blueprint for the ADOS perspective on reparations. I would encourage everybody to go pick that up. And so he describes what ADOS is from a movement perspective. And it says a movement blossomed in early 2019 on electronic network platforms under the label hashtag ADOS, an acronym for American Descendants of Slavery. This digital campaign asserts that Black American descendants of persons enslaved in the United States have a unique and exceptional claim on the nation's government for justice. So that is what ADOS is from a movement perspective. It stands for American Descendants of Slavery, and it's a justice claim movement. But it is something else. It's also an ethnicity or a lineage. And what is an ethnicity? The fact or state of belonging to a social group that has a common national or cultural tradition. So ADOS is not only a movement, and it's not only a political, also an advocacy group, meaning ADOS Chicago is a chapter in that context, but it's also what many of us consider our lineage. Is who I like to identify as. Okay. And so let me get a little bit deeper into lineage. This part of it is important. This is very important. Let me try to see if I can bring this on. Let me do an illustration. So when you see this picture right here, and when we do these presentations in person, this really gets a really good response. So when you see this person right here, this is obviously Bob Marley. All right, we love Bob Marley. Bob is the man. But what is Bob Marley? Well, when we ask that question, most people say, well, Bob is Jamaican. Well, you would be right. Bob is Jamaican. Well, when you see this person, we know who that is, Michael Jackson, the beloved one. We all love Michael Jackson, right? Well, what is Michael Jackson? People will say, well, Michael Jackson is black or he's African American. Well, you would be right. You were right about Bob and you were right about Michael Jackson. But the question I have is, why do most people refer to Bob Marley as Jamaican, even though he's black? And they refer to Michael Jackson as black. Why do you associate Bob Marley with an ethnicity and you associate Michael Jackson with simply a race? Well, this is why. It's a misunderstanding of lineage or race and lineage. So let me see if I can explain what race and lineage is. And this is the way we explain it that helps it make sense. So race and lineage are not the same, but lineage lives inside of race. So in an analogy sense, and a way that would make it make sense, well, let me say this first. So you can be black, but you can also be Jamaican. You can have that lineage. Or you can be black and you can also be Nigerian. You can be black, but you can also be Ghanaian. The subsequent terms to black were those people's lineages, but they live inside of race. And the interesting thing is, if I could back up a bit, with Bob Marley and the Bob Marley and Michael Jackson scenario or illustration, Bob Marley is considered black. If he would have moved to America, he would also be considered African American. But if Michael Jackson were to move to Jamaica, he would only be considered black. He would not be considered Jamaican. In other words, he could not be that lineage. And the reason for that is a very important reason, and we'll talk about that in a second. So race this is a way we can help understand what race and lineage means, or how it works. And here's a phrase that would hopefully do that. So race is the street we all live on as black people. Okay? Race is the street we all live on. So in other words, if I'm in California or Colorado, if I'm in Spain or America or Canada or China, if I see a black person, I see a person from my street. Okay? I see a person from Black Street. That's race. We all live on Black Street. Whether we like it or not, we're black. Okay? Lineage, on the other hand, is the house we all individually live on that street. Meaning, on Black Street, Jamaicans have a home, Haitians have a home, Nigerians have a home, Ghanaians have a home, Kenyans have a home, Cape Verdeans have a home, and now ADOS has a home. But prior to ADOS, we were just on the street. We were homeless on the street. We were black, but every and anybody could be in the lineage that, well, every and anybody could be classified as the same thing that we were. Therefore, we didn't necessarily have a defined lineage that was our own. Okay, so we were on Black Street, but we didn't have nowhere to go. So that's why you would see Bob Marley and you would say, oh, he's Jamaican. But then you see Michael Jackson and you say, oh, he's just black. Because Michael Jackson doesn't have a home on Black Street. Well, now Michael Jackson does. And that's what ADOS is. So why is it important knowing your lineage? You may think, well, you're making a big deal. What's the important? Why you got to know, so what? Everybody's black and, black is one flat thing. Why you got to make a big deal of it? Well, let me explain to you why it's important to know your lineage. Let me ask you a series of questions. So this is from public perspective. Did you know that there is a such thing as the Congressional Caribbean Caucus? What about the Congressional Nigerian Caucus? Did you know that? What about the American Immigrant Caucus? Did you know that? Or the African Immigrant Caucus? Did you know that? Well, those things actually exist. Okay, so these are groups, black groups, who have their own advocacy groups in the United States of America Congress, in the House. All right. Let me tell you what the African Immigrant Caucus says. It says other ethnic groups have a seat at the table and are getting their issues heard. Why not us? So these groups have their own advocacy groups. But what about the native black American that was enslaved, whose ancestors were enslaved in this country? Well, you do have the Congressional Black Caucus, right? But let me ask you something. In the Congressional Caribbean Caucus, can I, as an ADOS person, can I go to that caucus and get some sort of advocacy, or can I just claim to be a part of that caucus without their permission? Of course not. But can they claim to be a part of the Black Caucus? Well, of course they can. So my question is, where is the caucus specifically for you? Where's the advocacy specifically for you? So hopefully you're seeing why having a lineage and understanding of lineage is important. It's important for resources. Okay. Let's go to another illustration. Private. Have you ever heard of the Midwest Jamaican Corps? Well, look it up. It's a corp. It's an organization that does things specifically for Jamaicans in America. What about the Nigerian American Professionals Association? Well, that's an association that does things specifically for Nigerians in America. How about different types of scholarships? You can get scholarships for different ethnic groups. You can also get scholarships for Black Americans. You can get a scholarship for a Black American. Like you can get the United Negro College Fund scholarship if you're Black. But if I wanted to go to the Midwest Jamaican Corps and get a scholarship, even though I'm Black, I couldn't get it. Why? Because I'm not that lineage. But the United Negro College Fund was created for you, for ADOS people. But any and everybody can come and get those resources, right? So hopefully you see why a lineage is important for understanding, because you have a lineage whether you like it or not. We've just never defined ourselves as such. And so hopefully you are able to see why this is important. It's important to be able to protect your resources and the things that were created for your particular group. So let's look at ADOS by the numbers. I want to give you a little more information on who ADOS is, a little more information on what lineage and ethnicity is. Here in the city of Chicago, the Chicago metropolitan area has the third largest African American population behind New York City and Atlanta. The main ethnic groups in the city of Chicago are Irish, German, Italian, Mexican and Syrian, Arab, Bangladesh, Jews, English, Bosnian, Croatian, Bulgarian, Czech, Greek, Black, Korean, Chinese, Indian, Philippine, Lithuanian, etc. So they just named for you a bunch of white ethnic groups. People look at white as a race, which it is, but it's also a conglomerate of ethnic groups. Well, here in the city of Chicago, you have a third of the city that's white, a third of the city is Black, and a third of the city is Hispanic. Well, inside those races, those categories are multitudes of ethnic groups. And I just named some of the largest ones here. Well, the Black ethnic group is 90+% ADOS. So in the city of Chicago, ADOS is the largest ethnic group in the city. It may be the same in your city or state. You should take a look at that. So we are the largest ethnic group. I think the second largest is the German group, the German white group. And they're about 15% of the city of Chicago or something like that. But we're the largest ethnic group in this city. But we're considered a minority in the city of Chicago. Isn't that interesting? So now the largest ethnic group is considered a minority. So now when it comes to contracts and all those kind of things, we get lumped in the minority pool, which the pool was made for us, first of all. And now we have to share the minority pool with, white women and Hispanics and Asians and the handicapped and the midgets and humpbacks and everybody else. When we're the largest ethnic group. You see the little games they play? Here's another piece. It says African Americans are an ethnic group of Americans with total partial ancestry from any of the Black racial groups of Africa. The phrase generally refers to descendants of enslaved Black people who are in the United States. That's what it should refer to, but that's not the case. Every and anybody that is Black can access that term. And so hopefully you're seeing why lineage is an important concept to understand. So how do we advocate? Black people have advocacy groups that were created to do political and social work for the descendants of enslaved people in this country. One of those groups is the NAACP. That was a group created for us. And how do I know it was specifically for us? Well, At the time it was created, we're the only black people in America, pretty much. Okay, so the NAACP, look at how they're advocating today. It says, this is a tweet from the NAACP a few months ago. It says this legislation is desperately needed. First step to healing. Excuse me. This legislation is a desperately needed first step to helping small businesses owned by people of beep. I ain't gonna say the curse word. And located in underserved. Oh, there's another curse word. Areas. Here's your curse word, Bob. The underserved areas, which are hardest hit by COVID-19. So let me read that again. This legislation is a desperately needed first step to helping small businesses owned by people of color and located in underserved communities, which are hardest hit by COVID-19. So why is the NAACP talking about people of color? It's an interesting question, right? Because they don't understand or don't seem to care to understand the concept of lineage. Let's look at the Black Caucus. It says, here's a tweet from April 16th from the CBC. It says, power up. African American lawmakers say the Trump administration isn't doing enough to help minorities weather the coronavirus. Now, I'm an African American. I ain't said nothing about the Trump administration not doing enough for minorities. I ain't never said that. So I don't know what they're talking about. But people may say, well, why are you tripping on them? They may be concerned about other groups. All right, cool. They're concerned about other groups. Watch this. Let me show you something else they said. They said 2.8 million, this is the Black Caucus again, 2.8 million immigrants are healthcare professionals putting their lives at risk to take care of their patients. They must all, no matter their immigration status, be included in any COVID relief package. So they're talking about anybody who's an immigrant, and they're talking about, which I agree with immigrants, and they're talking about those who are here undocumented. Well, people may say, well, they care about those people. Okay, fine. That's fine. They have the right. They can do what they want to do. They can care about who they want to care about. But let's look at the Hispanic caucus. Let's look at how they advocate. Here's a tweet from the Hispanic caucus. It says around half, 49% of Hispanics say they or someone in their household has taken a pay cut or lost a job or both because of the COVID-19 outbreak, compared with 33% of all U.S. adults. The next recovery package must do more for people of color. Okay, so I just paused right there for a moment. That was a pregnant pause. They actually didn't say people of color if you're reading along. They said the next recovery package must do more for Latino communities. We'll go back to the Black Caucus. What they say. African American lawmakers say the Trump administration isn't doing enough to help minorities. Let's go back to the Hispanic caucus. The next recovery package must do more for Latino communities. Let's go back to the Black Caucus. African American lawmakers say Trump administration isn't doing enough to help minorities. Go back to the Hispanic caucus. The next recovery package must do more for Latino community. So do you see the problem? So here we are. We have the Hispanic caucus advocating 100% for the Hispanic community, Latino community. Then you have the Black caucus legislating for the Latino community. So the Hispanic community get 100% of their advocacy. Then they get 50% of the Black community advocacy. And we're left with 50% of our caucus's advocacy. Probably less than that. Because they advocate for Hispanics and women of color and people of color and minorities, etc. So the Hispanic community is getting full support from themselves and half support from us, and we won't focus solely on us. So this is how you don't advocate, all right? And so hopefully you guys are seeing why lineage is important, because it's important to, again, for resource share, it's important to resource protection. It's just like a home. If you have a home, you put your most valuable possessions in that home. You put your Your family's in that home. Your wallet's in the home. Your keys, your checking account information, your family jewels, your fine china, all the things you love and adore are in that home. And the lineage is the exact same thing. And because we haven't been taught that that's important, we are here in this country that our ancestors built with no protection in that regard. And so I want to give you one more illustration of why lineage is important. And then we're going to get to a part of the presentation that will help drive the point to make sure we understand what lineage is. So I want you to think about we hear a lot about, as Black people, we hear the first Black this and the first Black that. Well, let me give you some first Blacks. The first Black president was not Ados, Barack Obama. The first Black attorney general was not Ados, Eric Holder. The first Black potential vice president is not Ados, Kamala Harris. The first Black joint chief of staff is not Ados, it's Colin Powell. The first Black chief of staff was not Ados. Kamala Harris's chief of staff, first Black chief of staff was a Black VP, is not Ados. The first Black male president of the Harvard Law Review, a school that was built by slaves, our ancestors. The first Black male president is not Ados. The first Black female president of the Harvard Law Review is not Ados. The largest graduating classes of Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Georgetown, schools our ancestors built. The Black population, the Black graduating classes from those schools are majority not Ados. Well, let me go a little bit deeper. First Black president of the Young Democrats, not Ados. The first Black Supreme Court justice of New Jersey, just found out recently, is this young lady. She's not Ados. Well, let's go a little bit deeper. The actor that played Martin King in Selma was not Ados. Coretta Scott King wasn't. The actress that played her wasn't Ados. The actress that played Harriet Tubman, not Ados. The actor that is playing Fred Hampton, not Ados. There's an actor that's about to play Malcolm X and Barack Obama. Well, Barack Obama is Ados, but this actor is not Ados. So I could go on and on and on and on. The point I'm making is, in the country your ancestor built, because we haven't grasped the concept of lineage, in the country our ancestors built, many first Blacks aren't us. I mean, I just painted a picture of dominance for you. First Black president, vice president, attorney general, joint chief of staff, young Democrats, Harvard Law Review. This is a picture of dominance. And in the country you built, you're not in that space. Now take me to the Black country, the Caribbean or African country, where those people, where you can paint a picture of dominance by those people in those countries. Take me to that country. Pick any Black country, or any country where Black people populate outside of the United States of America that's considered home for a particular Black ethnic group, that those people that Blacks from America can dominate in. Not only do we not dominate, first of all, we don't have the desire to dominate in those countries. Secondly, you're not allowed to, and rightfully so. Those are not our countries. Those aren't our countries. I shouldn't be the dominant group in Ghana or Haiti. Haitians should be. Ghanaians should be. But here in America, because of for several reasons, but primarily because of the concept of not understanding lineage, everybody else in the country we built are in positions of power, and that is a problem. So now, that's lineage. That's what the lineage piece of ADOS is. So now let's see how well you grasp the concept. I'm going to give you a series of pictures, and I want you to tell me if these people are ADOS or not. This is called the ADOS in the House Wheel of Fortune. So the first contestant is these beautiful people, Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King. And by the way, Martin Luther King coined the term descendant slave. If you look in his book, Where Do We Go From Here? He called us descendants of slaves. So on the ADOS Wheel of Fortune, are these two beautiful people in the house? Well, yes, they are. They are in the house. They are ADOS approved, without a doubt. Get to the next contestant. This strapping young fella here, Booker T. Washington. Is he in the house? 100% ADOS approved. How about this fellow? W.B. Du Bois. Is he in the house? Without a doubt. He is ADOS approved. Next contestant, Madam C.J. Walker. ADOS approved. How about this fellow? Marcus Mosiah Garvey. ADOS. Nope, not approved. Wonderful guy. All the respect and love in the world for him, but he's not ADOS. He's Jamaican. And did you know, in a reparations conversation, that Jamaica said if a descendant of Jamaica, a son and daughter of Jamaica, leaves Jamaica, and Jamaica happens to get reparations from, I believe it's Great Britain that colonized them, I think, if I'm correct, that their reparations follow them. You see that? They get lineage. They understand that. Now, I couldn't go to Jamaica and get time of reparations, nor would I want to. And we have to establish the same respect here in this country. All right, so let's get to the next contestant. Minister Farrakhan, the minister. We love the right. I grew up down the street from the mosque here in Chicago, Mosque Miriam. My dad still lives around the corner. You know, I grew up admiring the minister and the Nation of Islam, or the Fruits of Islam. Guys that were disciplined, and I wanted to be a Muslim when I was a kid. And you know, they say Minister Farrakhan speaks truth to power, but is he ADOS? No, he's not. Now, I adore Minister Farrakhan. Don't get me wrong. But from what I understand, unless I'm mistaken, he is Caribbean on both sides. Now, that's another thing. With us, the requirement is you have to have a ancestor who you can trace their lineage back to slavery in America. And some folks have dual lineages. For instance, Malcolm X. Malcolm X's mother was Caribbean, and his father was ADOS. So Malcolm X would be ADOS. Okay? But from what I understand, Minister Farrakhan is Caribbean on both sides, which is fine. I don't have a problem with being Caribbean on both sides. It just means that I'm not Caribbean on both sides, either side. And it means that people who are Caribbean on both sides are not ADOS. Okay, so he's not ADOS approved in that sense. What about these two folks? Well, one of them is Michelle Obama, and the other one, not so much. Barack is not ADOS, nor ADOS approved. How about this young lady here? That is Yvette Carnell, if you don't know. She is the co-founder of ADOS. You can actually look her up. You can go to YouTube and you can search Yvette Carnell, and you will pull up her YouTube channel. She broadcasts once a week or twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. Central Time or something like that. And she is, without a doubt, ADOS approved all day long. How about this fella and this guy? ADOS approved. So the guy to the left is Antonio Moore. He's the other co-founder of ADOS. He's an attorney out of UCLA, out of LA, rather, Los Angeles. and you can look him up on YouTube. You can actually go to YouTube and search Antonio Moore or Tone Talks and watch his channel. He does a broadcast once a week, every Friday. And you can Google some of his writings and articles on ADOS online if you just Google Antonio Moore ADOS. And the guy to the right, we mentioned him earlier, is Dr. William Darity, the author of the book From Here to Equality. And he's the ADOS economist. He is absolutely 100% ADOS. This guy, if you're on Facebook, you may know this guy. His name is Brian Mullins. And he looks like he's not ADOS, but he's ADOS. And he works with us pretty heavily. I mean, we just mess with him because he kind of looks Cuban, but he's ADOS. So he's ADOS approved. And this is everybody, well, not everybody, most people in ADOS Chicago. We all took a trip to Springfield end of last year to lobby a bill. We had House Bill 4260 to create a lineage space in state law for ADOS, and then create carve-outs for ADOS people. So we have some bills in the House in Springfield, and this was us going to lobby for those actions. If you see right behind us, the rotunda in Springfield at our state capitol. So everybody on that list is ADOS. Okay, so hopefully now you see that you're ADOS if you are. And if you are, we want to say welcome home, ADOS. Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. You have a home now. You didn't before, or you did, you just didn't know it. You didn't know your ancestors left you a home, and now you know. So welcome home and join us, ADOS folk, in this fight for reparations and for lineage identification, lineage ID. So welcome home, ADOS. And that's what ADOS is. ADOS is American Descendants of Slavery. It's a lineage, it's an identity, and it's a movement. Okay, so where are we economically? I suspect this is a video actually, but I suspect it's not going to play, so I won't even play it. But well, I suspect you won't be able to hear it. But you can actually go to YouTube and type Black Wealth and White Wealth Explained in Less Than 2 Minutes by the co-founder of ADOS, Antonio Moore. Hey, I see Mona. Somebody say, hey, Mona, how you doing? I see Mona in YouTube. What's up, sis? All right, so where are we economically? The chart you're looking at here is the racial wealth inequality wealth chart. And the blue line up here is the white wealth line. And it shows, and it's a lot further. Well, this is the 2024 projection. This was post-recession where the wealth kind of dipped off, but now it's back to about 170,000. It's kind of somewhere up here. And so the median household net worth for white families in America is about 150, 170,000. Median household net worth for black families, ADOS particularly, is $1,700. So how did this happen? How did that wealth gap get created? Well, you see that sign of a picture of bacon, so that's not how it got created. It wasn't bacon. It was cotton, king cotton. Okay. And Marion says, how can she get involved with helping? I'm reading the chat here. So Marion says, how can she get involved with helping ADOS Chicago? Hey, Marion, you can go to you can email me. You can go to, matter of fact, I'll put my email in the chat here. So you can shoot me an email and we'll get in touch with you ASAP. All right, hopefully you see my email address there, Mary. You can shoot me an email. Okay, so what created the wealth gap? Again, you see the picture of bacon. Bacon didn't do it, cotton did. And I only use that picture of the bacon here because most people don't know that there's a company called King Cotton. Do you know that? There's a company in the South called King Cotton. Well, where did that name come from? Well, here's where King Cotton came from. It came from James Hammond, a Southern plantation owner and U.S. Senator. You mean a senator was a plantation owner? Yeah, he was. And James Hammond said, without firing a gun, without drawing a sword, should they make war on us, we could bring the whole world to our feet. What would happen if no cotton was furnished for 3 years? I will not stop to depict what everyone can imagine, but this is certain. England would topple headlong and carry the whole civilized world with her, save the South. No, you dare not make war on cotton. No power on earth dares make war upon it. Cotton is king. Well, that's where King Cotton came from. And this company was actually named King Cotton. Something else, right? They still exist. And so just looking at cotton, and black people didn't just pick cotton. Okay. America had a slave economy, meaning everything that moved in America was connected to slavery. Slaves had to eat, they had to wear clothes, they had to be seen by doctors, all kind of stuff. Okay. So they had to get insured. They had to have living arrangements, though shabby, shanty. They still had to have them. They had to have tools to do the work that they were forced to do. So the whole American economy was a slave economy at one time. And so the primary wealth, meaning the startup capital of the American corporation, the USA, was solely created by the backs of unpaid slaves in this country. And so the wealth gap happened because of that. All that wealth that was created, we were never given access to it. Even after Emancipation Proclamation, when they created the Freedmen's Banking Bureau to give us an economic hand up, and when they actually created and started to issue 40 acres in a mule, well, after Lincoln was assassinated and the Freedmen's Banking Bureau was defunct and defunded, they took back the 40 acres in a mule that they actually started to give right off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia, 40 miles in, coastland. And since that time, ADOS has been wealthless and penniless in a land full of wealth that they've created, and that wealth gap has existed since, because that money was just hoarded into the white community, and it grew and it grew and it grew, and we were never given access to it, and it was never given to us. So let's get back to the point here. Let's just look at a small notion of Mississippi cotton production. In 1833, Mississippi created 70 million pounds of cotton. 1839, 193 million pounds. 1849, 194 million pounds. In 1859, 535 million pounds of cotton. Well, cotton was, in the early 1800s, was about 10 cents a pound. That's a lot of money. Around 1859, on the eve of the Civil War, it got to be $1.40 per pound. So this was just in Mississippi. And so what created that wealth gap was all that wealth created through cotton production. And not only cotton, we picked the tobacco, we picked the fruit, we shoveled the snow, we cut the grass, we built the homes, we breastfed the kids, and so on and so forth. Okay, built the colleges, built the White House. And so from the 1600s to the 1700s to the mid 1800s, you see slavery. And then they say, well, slavery ended in 1865. Well, in 1942, a circular was issued that made slavery illegal. Well, why would you have to make slavery illegal in 1942 if it ended in 1865? So we still had slavery, and we still had Jim Crow. And now in 2000s, we have mass incarceration, redlining, convict leasing. Convict leasing by another name, mass incarceration, and redlining, and so many other things that affect the ADOS community. And this is the cause of the wealth gap that we just saw. Here's a color of wealth report. So what's the problem? The problem in the Black community, in the ADOS community, particularly is a lack of wealth. Any dysfunction you see is primarily in our community related to the lack of wealth. The violence we see, and in terms of gun violence and the different types of dysfunction we may see in our community, is related to lack of wealth. W.E.B. Du Bois said, war is hard, but being a poor people in a land full of dollars is the bottom of hardship. And that's where we are. So all the issues we have are related to the poverty that's inflicted upon us. Just recently here in the city of Chicago, 15 people were shot leaving a funeral. Well, in the mid 1900s, 20 people were shot and 10 were killed leaving a funeral, and Al Capone's gang did it. Well, at that time, Italians were a poor community. So they had the same issues with gangs and guns, etc., that we did. During that time, the Irish were a poor community. There was a poor Jewish community. And because America made them middle class and made them fully American, they were able to endure and come out of the poverty they were in. Well, we've never been given that opportunity. We've never been made fully American in that sense. And so that is the reason for the issues you see in our community. So let's look at a study here called the Color of Wealth Report that was done by Dr. William Darity and Derek Hamilton. And it shows the wealth position of ADOS people and different ethnic groups, whites, Asians, Latinos, etc., from a net worth perspective. So in the city of Los Angeles, you'll see the U.S. black has a median net worth of $4,000. The black immigrant, $72,000. Latinos, negative $3,500. Whites, $355,000. Asians, $298,000. Well, let's look at Miami. U.S. blacks, $3,700. Black immigrants, $12,000. Latino, $22,000. Whites, $100,000. Boston, $8. 18,000, 4,000, 250,000. District of Columbia, 3,500, 3,000, 284,000 for whites, and 400,000 for Asians. So as you can see, we're on the bottom just about everywhere as it relates to the economy, to our economic position, rather. Here's another chart to look at. This chart was created by Tone Talks. So the ultra elite in America has a net worth of $6 million or more. These are folks that go to Harvard, they legacybuild.com startups, and in that strata, less than a few thousand black families exist there. Okay. The elite strata in America is 1.2 million to 6 million. These are folks that go to UCLA, community development, they open restaurants, and less than 340,000 black families are in the elite. Then you have families that are doing good, 500 net worth or more. These are folks who go to universities like University of Georgia, pay off their children's student loan debt. They can afford that. They have retirements. We have less than 750,000 black families in that strata. The average family making 100,000 net worth or more, generally no college, possible trade school. These are W-2 workers. They pay bills. They probably do Uber on the side. And we only have 20% of the top 20% of black families are in this strata, and the rest of us have a negative net worth. So what does this look like? This is what that looks like. This is what that looks like. Okay. This highlighted area, this is the bottom 50% of Black America, and we're worth less than $1. In fact, we're negative 4 to 5% total in negative wealth. And what does the wealth gap look like right here in Chicago? This article in NPR, WBEZ Chicago, says Chicago owns America's widest racial wealth gap in economic mobility. This was the worst right here in Chicago. And here's a breakdown of poor residents in our city. In Chicago, about 30%. It was probably about 40% now due to COVID. Probably less, more than that. Um, in the city of Chicago, we're the most impoverished, and in the state of Illinois, we're the most impoverished. Um, Look at the breakdown of poor residents within race and below the income poverty level. Again, we're winning in that regard. Here's Harvard economist Rod Shetty. Rod Shetty says that for white Americans, achieving the American dream is like climbing an economic ladder. If you climb up in one generation, that's basically where you're going to start the next generation. And then you can climb up further. But for black Americans, and black men in particular, it's like being on a treadmill. When even after you've climbed up in one generation, there are tremendous structural forces that make it highly likely you're going to fall back down in the next generation, and then you'll have to make that climb again. Look at black male unemployment. And this is I think this is in 2014 or something like that. It's way worse now. Way worse. So unemployed 7% for whites, African Americans 21%. Not in the labor force 39%. For whites 52%. For African Americans, and I'm sure it's because of COVID. I'm sure it's way worse now. And all those things result in the prison industrial complex. I mean, if you don't have a job, you don't have any wealth, what happens? America builds prisons for you. And so in this country, there are 745,000 black men incarcerated. This was back in, I think, 2010 or something like that. And that's more than all these countries put together. India, Argentina, Lebanon, Japan, Canada, Germany, Finland, Israel, and England. They only have 742,000 together, while America has 745,000 black men and mostly all adult men in prison. Here's another chart. I think this chart was created by Antonio Moore. American incarceration rate per 100,000 by gender and race. White women, 129 per 100,000. And they're catching up too. They're at like 200 something per 100,000 now. This is an older chart. I think it's 2010 data. Black women, 332 per 100,000. White men, 900 per 100,000. Black men, back here. Well, I missed my chart. I know what happened. Let me go back. All right. So, white women at 129 per 100,000. Black women 332. White men 900 per 100,000. Black men 5,000 per 100,000. And working age black men about 9,000 per 100,000, meaning 18 I think 35, which is the prime of your life. And what happens when black men suffer incarceration? Well, black women suffer too. Not incarceration, but in different ways. Here's a study that shows eviction rates for black women are on par with incarceration rates for black men. That's not a coincidence. So let's take a look. My charts up again. All right, so let's take a look at the household net worth by race and household income quintile. In the top quintile here, you see whites have a net worth of about $500,000, while blacks have a net worth of $260,000. They're both in the same quintile. The next down, you see whites with an median household income of $200,000, with blacks $83,000. This is not wealth; this is income. The next quintile down, $112,000 for whites, $22,000 for blacks. The next one, $61,000 for whites, $7,600 for blacks. The next one, $18,000 for whites, the bottom quintile, and $200 for blacks. Well, let's look at it by race and employment status. For whites full-time, The household net worth is 144,000. Blacks, 11,000. For whites out of labor, it's 75,000. That's the net worth. For blacks, 1,700. For whites out of unemployed, their net worth is 55,000. Blacks, 1,300. Well, let's look at it by education. People say, well, just go to school, get your degree, and you're home free. Well, let's take a look. The median net worth for post-college whites, 455,000. Post-college blacks, 141,000. For those with just college, 268,000. Blacks, 70,000. For whites with some college, 135K. Blacks, 18,000. High school, 118,000 for whites. Blacks, 6,600. Less than high school, 82,000 for whites, 2,700 for blacks. And even health is wealth. This lack of wealth even affects our health. Our brother Mark Allen just passed here in Chicago, and he was known to have diabetes or cancer that had went into remission. And he had just left the doctor. This is coming from somebody who knew him really closely. He told me this story. He said he just left the doctor, and they told him, this was a day or so ago, that his cancer was fine, but his stress is what would kill him. So dealing with the pain of poverty and lack of wealth can kill you. Okay, being stressed out can kill you. So even health is wealth. So if you look at this chart, poor folks suffer more physical pain, more worry, more sadness, more stress, and more anger than rich people and middle class people. Right here in the city of Chicago, the mortality age, the age of death, rather, for people in Inglewood is, I think, 65. Well, while in Lakeview, it's 90. Lakeview is the white area, the rich area. So blacks die on average at 60, 65 years old, and whites in the city of Chicago die at 90 years old. You even get to live longer with more money. Money answers all things. But this is what wealth does. Dr. William Darity says the single most important indicator of economic well-being is the racial wealth gap. So I just told y'all a whole bunch of problems. So let's talk about what the solution is. But first, let's talk about what it is not. The first thing is the solution is not doing for ourselves. We hear that a whole lot. We hear people say, well, black people just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and start more businesses. But as Dr. King said, it's a cruel just to tell a man to pull himself up by his bootstraps when he doesn't have any bootstraps. And so in ADOS, we do data. All right. And we survey studies and see what the social scientists say about wealth and about our community as opposed to our own opinions. So people say, well, you know, just got to do for self and be black capitalists. Well, let's take a look here. Here's a study called Not for Lack of Trying, American Entrepreneurship in Black and Whites. And you can actually Google this study and pull it up. And what this study discovers, and I'll go down to the bottom here. It says, we find that Black Americans tend to exhibit more optimistic perceptions of their business environment than other racial groups and are more likely than others to attempt to start a business. In fact, our results show that Blacks are almost twice as likely as whites to try starting a business. Thus, our results suggest that the underrepresentation of Black Americans among established entrepreneurs is not due to lack of trying, but many instead may be due to stronger barriers of entry and higher failure rates, which essentially means lack of wealth. So here's something else this study says. It says, we find Black Americans to show an above average propensity to start a business while white Americans are less likely to engage in business startups than our sample average. Our main finding that blacks are more likely to try starting businesses than whites is new and potentially very important, as it suggests that constraints and not preferences are behind racial differences in business ownership. So people keep saying, well, we need to just be entrepreneur. Well, we already are. We're the most enterprising people in the country. This study also said that we start business 1.5 times of Hispanics, just to be clear on that. Here's another snippet from the study. Our results also show that even after controlling both for socioeconomic and perceptual variables, Black Americans are still more likely to start a business than white Americans. These results are surprising since it has been shown that the gains from self-employment to minorities are comparatively smaller, and therefore that minority individuals have lower incentive to become self-employed. I don't know why the study started talking about blacks, but then it switched to minorities. That's strange. All right, so here's another study. Or here's another part of the study. People always say, well, it's the mindset. It's the mindset. Well, look what this study discovered. It says by the fact that Black Americans are more self-confident in the entrepreneurial skills, exhibit higher alertness to business opportunities, and are less sensitive to fear of failure. Given the lack of panel data, we are not able to unequivocally determine the direction of causality between perceptual variables and entrepreneurial activity. However, we find some evidence that these subjective and possibly biased perceptions may contribute to an increased entrepreneurial propensity. Regardless of causality, the fact of the matter is that blacks seem to perceive themselves and their entrepreneurial environment in a much more optimistic light than whites. Well, I thought we had to fix our mindsets. Well, this study says we got the best mindset. Here's another part of the study. Our results are consistent with Walstead and Karlisky, who investigated the attitudes towards education in and knowledge of entrepreneurship of Black youth using results from a national survey. Their study found Black youth to exhibit a stronger desire to start businesses than white youth, to want more entrepreneurship taught in their schools, and to believe successful entrepreneurs have a responsibility to give back to the community. Ain't people always beating up on Black youth? They're always dogging our kids out. But this study says our kids are pretty exceptional, at least when it comes to entrepreneurialism and giving back to their community. So, as we can see, it's not for lack of trying. It's for lack of wealth. Okay? And look at here. Look at all the businesses, Black businesses in the United States. And 96% of them are single employed, meaning it's a person that has an LLC that's trying to make their business work. Even though we have almost 3 million businesses now, they're just only 4% of them are actually legitimate businesses that actually have employees. Here's another fun fact. Here's a snapshot at reading from the Pew Research. Guess who reads more? Total, females read more than men, 82% versus 69%. But when it comes to race, whites are at 76%, Hispanics 67%, blacks 81%. We even read more than everybody else. Everybody keep blaming us for not winning and not doing well. Obviously, it's something else and not us. I will play this video, but I don't think this video is playing. This is essentially Dr. King talking about, this is right before he was assassinated. He said that white peasants came from Europe and got undergirded with an economic floor in this country. They were given free land, free money, and free resources to mechanize the land. And then he said, and they never did the same for the American Negro. But he said, this time when we go to Washington on this campaign, we're going to get our check. And so Dr. King's movement was a reparations movement that was going in that direction. And we are the continuation of that movement. And so what is the solution to all these issues we talked about? The solution is reparations. And that's a down payment on justice. Reparations is a down payment on justice and a reparations package that will close the racial wealth gap that we saw. Not only reparations, but local equity, meaning in your local areas, uh, a fair amount, or commensurate amount at least, of contracts and state, city, and county resources. This is what solves that problem. And so Dr. Darity says the racial wealth gap can be closed with a reparations package of a $10 to $12 trillion at the base, which would be essentially there are about 35 million ADOS people in America, and that's essentially $346,000 per person, and that is what will close the wealth gap. And I don't want people to think of it as just um, cash or direct payments, which a part of it is, but it's a portfolio of things. It's a portfolio of direct payments, um, grants for businesses, grants for homes, and a myriad of other things in that portfolio that come from the federal government. We're looking at the federal government, not state and local. So if you see these state and local reparations commissions, understand that they're not talking about reparations being paid from the federal government, then I would suggest people reject those claims and point their states in the direction of federal reparations as opposed to state and local. And so with all that ADOS talk, that's about the end of the presentation. We still have a Black agenda. And right here in the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois, we are working on a Black agenda via trying to get our governor to sign the Rapid Relief Executive Order for Black citizens in Illinois. And if you'd like to help with that, you can go to itshardbeingblack.info. And It's Hard Being Black came from our governor, who actually said after George Floyd was murdered that it's hard being Black and we have to do something about it. So we have an executive order we want him to sign that will do something about it. So for everybody that says, oh, ADOS is anti-Black, anti-this, that, and the third, well, why is it we have a Black agenda? We're actually not. We're just pro-ADOS. So if you want to help with that and you're in the state of Illinois, go to itshardbeingblack.info. You can sign that petition. And we will instruct you on how to help us further in this regard. And this is part of the Black agenda just generally with the ADOS community. And that executive order is the Rapid Relief Executive Order for Black Illinois citizens. And you can go take a look at that at itshardbeingblack.info. And so that's the end of the presentation. If you would like to reach out to ADOS or ADOS Chicago, you can go to adoschicago.org. You can fill out that survey form and it'll get your information to us and we'll get back to you. Again, you can also go to itshardbeingblack.info to help with our local agenda. And we also have a PAC, the Illinois ADOS Equity PAC. It's a local PAC and it's designed to, we created it because people kept trying to give me money personally and I don't want to touch nobody's money. So we needed a mechanism for people that wanted to give. And that PAC is that mechanism. So if you want to give to us, you can, to our political endeavors, you can do that. That you can give to the Illinois ADOS Equity PAC at illinois-adosequitypac.org. And here are a list of our websites: adoschicago.org, illinois-adosequity.org, itshardbeingblack.info, and the main ADOS site is ADOS101.com. And if you want to give to us via Cash App or Venmo, the tags are here below. And if you want to meet with us, our headquarters is the Avalon Park Community Church here in the city of Chicago at 8100 South Dante. Pastor Williams is the pastor there. And I should have put this in my presentation, but we have an actual sign on the front of the building that says Reparations Now. Reparations Now. And it also has the ADOS symbol there. And we're the only church in America that I know of that has a Reparations Now sign, and we're trying to encourage churches to do so. But anyway, if you want to meet with us, we do conference calls regularly, weekly, and we meet over at that church. That's our headquarters. And if you'd like to come and hang out and social distance with us, we're there generally every Sunday. And after this COVID thing is under control, we're going to be there every day doing all kind of work for the community. So look forward to seeing you guys there if you want to link up with us. And that is it. That is the presentation. So once again, thank you for joining. Go to ADOSchicago.org. Go to itshardbeingblack.info and help us out. Help us sign those petitions. Reach out to us. Get in touch with us. Give us some money. Okay. You want to give us 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever. We can use the help because the advocacy work we do, we actually spend money doing it many times. And so that's what we're doing. So give us a hand, reach out to us, share this information, and we will talk to you soon.